Hi and welcome to the Special Needs Marriage and Family channel. I'm Brad Lee and this is my second cousin, Rita Jane Smith. We are in beautiful southern Indiana. Apologize, it's been a while since I've done a video, but we have been in the process of moving. For those of you not in military, that don't understand military lingo, we are PCSing, which means permanent change of station, to Hawaii. But this is a great stop and backdrop along the way in Indiana where my parents live. Rita Jane and her family live nearby in southern Indiana as well. And Rita Jane and John, her husband, have a son, Ethan, who just turned 23 a day before my birthday, who was also born with Down syndrome. So we have a few connections family-wise and in the special needs context. But I've asked Rita Jane, this is my first interview on the Special Needs Marriage and Family channel, and I've asked her to allow me to interview her and ask her a few questions. So Rita Jane, would you tell us about a little about Ethan and really those early years, kind of his birth, what that was like, especially those first 1 to 5 years, and how you adjusted to having a son born with Down syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's an honor to do this. First of all, I did not allow the doctor to check me to see if I was having a Down syndrome child. I was probably at age 32, and I specifically wanted to be with a doctor that, identified my needs and took care, because I didn't want any anxiety about pregnancy and so forth that goes along with it. And so when when Ethan was delivered, I noticed, I am also a respiratory therapist, and I noticed he had some breathing issues as I held him in my arms, and my husband was nearby and everything, but I didn't think too much of it, but I knew it would get addressed. And John actually, after an exhausting labor that we had, John left, and I had the doctor come in, and he had a nurse with him, and he says, Mrs. Smith, I want you to know, your son has Down syndrome. And given it was only just so many hours after birth, but he painted a very dark picture. He said this child will grow up, be severely mentally retarded. He will most likely have to be institutionalized. He really laid a heavy load.
Wow.
As I'm still in the birthing room. And the nurse, he said, Ethan's having some breathing difficulty, and so the other pediatrician is going to address that. So we immediately, I just fell apart, and the nurse was comforting, and she says, now you just wait, let's just do genetic, they do a genetic testing and so forth. And so Ethan had to be transferred to Louisville, Kentucky. And by the way, I did get a hold of John, and so he rushed back to the hospital. So it was all very monumental for the whole family and so forth. Ethan was separated from me for almost, a good 8 hours. I was struggling to get out of the hospital during that time. But we're a family of faith, and we just went to praying about this matter, because we're like, what does this all mean? Is it going to be this dark outlook? And one thing after another. They did several tests. We knew Ethan's strength was real good. There's a lot of positive things. He was born with an extra thumb on this this thumb right here. So we learned that they knew that just by identifying that there was something else going on.
Okay.
His heart was pretty strong. We didn't have to have no surgeries, gastrointestinal, which some of them do have problems with that. That was all remaining good. He was in the hospital probably 2 weeks, and the hole that was there in his heart actually closed up. So from there, I just kept getting strengthened by all that. That my son is going to, make, he's going to be all right. We have a daughter. She was like 4 years older than him, and I knew with dealing with a child, some of the things that they should be doing and not doing, and that sort of thing. But he did real well. We brought him home. I was being bombarded by so much information about Down syndrome, and people trying to tell me, well, this is what they do, and I just kind of had to play it mom mode, and treat him as I did with Lauren, our daughter, when she was a baby. I fed him, I loved him. I watched for any unusual signs, and I didn't really see anything until probably he, setting up, trying to set up.
And how old would he have been?
He was probably about. Normally they'll try to set up at 6 months. I would say he was close to a year to 18 months. But I had a therapist that came to the house. We have in southern Indiana and through Kentuckiana, we have a program called First Steps. And so we had a speech therapy and occupational therapy, recreational therapy, and a physical therapy that would take turns working with him. And those are very, very important resources for families. I can't emphasize that enough.
Absolutely.
When they initiate that, and I will say the hospital that we dealt with at the time, COSAIRS, they had a lady there. She also had a son with Down syndrome, and she'd come and talk to me. And she really headed me in that direction too, because I was like dealing with, mom blues, and what does this mean? I've got a child that's got a disability, and I was still being crushed by what the initial doctor at our hospital, he wasn't even our doctor, he was a fill-in doctor, and the dark cloud that he had presented, and I'm like, is this really how it's going to be? All these, and I just kind of decided though at that point, I'm just going to take this, just the old saying, a day at a time. It's like, what is important is here and now. What am I dealing with Ethan? And try not to look at that future aspect, to keep my anxiety at a very calm level, because a mom will forever worry about their children no matter how old they are. And but I started seeing the accomplishments that he would do, playing and interacting. His sister, I think it's wonderful when they're around siblings, because that just creates, there's such a bond created, but they learn off of those children, other children, the speech, the interaction, play. I mean, you really understand how important those little factors are. We grew up, we played, we knew how entertaining that was. But when you have a child with a disability, you want to see how they play. I mean, I learned so much from therapists to just see how they're moving blocks around, or playing certain games, and you just become more focused on their abilities. And I've seen that with Ethan. I've seen him making accomplishments all along. Now, he's always had a weakness with his speech, and that is, there are some Down syndrome children I have seen over the years. They speak well, they interact well. Some go to college. They go to graduate high school.
And Ethan graduated high school.
He graduated high school in 2015. Wow. And usually there's always different facets of group meetings that you have throughout early elementary. I call it the Knights of the Round Table meetings, where you meet different therapists and the case managers and things like that. The school incorporates different leaders that work with the special needs group, and they talk about certain goals.
You're talking about the IEP.
The IEP.
Which, for those of you without a special needs child, stands for Individual Education Plan.
Yes.
So, and that's a big deal in the special needs world.
It is. And some people get really frustrated, like, well, I don't know what to say. I don't know, what do I want to plan? Well, here in Indiana, and I don't know if it's like that in other, but there are wonderful, there was always these packets they handed out, and these booklets. One, the rights of a special needs person, and services that are provided. And I mean, it can be a little thick book, but it's great to know what you have when you need it. And then there's also these wonderful group of people all across really the nation that are called advocates. And sometimes you have to counsel with the advocate. A lot of times these can be volunteer people, and they provide a wealth of knowledge. Maybe you as a parent don't know how to maybe deal with a school system, or a certain, any kind of conflict, or maybe there's something that you want your child to be a provider or go into. Your advocacies, they can also attend your IEP meetings to provide, kind of intervene. They are very calming people. They're not there to stir up trouble, but they're to help all the team members to come into agreement. And they kind of can guide you on what things you want for your child.
Right.
If you want, your child's going to play on a playground, and maybe there's one person that's watching 60 people, that is a problem, okay? And so sometimes the school systems, they have budgets, and they go by budgets, and whether their staffing, their transportation, but you have a right to protect. You're going to do something as a parent to protect your child. But when your child goes into that type of environment,
and to
you
clarify,
want to protect that.
again, for people that don't understand that, was Ethan in an inclusive program then?
Ethan, okay. First, it was kind of partial. Okay, and your IEP kind of structures that. And it's kind of a joint effort. You share your desires, what you want, what is your expectations for the school to do for your child. If you want them in total classroom with the teachers, or with the non-disabled,
With
then,
typical children,
yes,
which is, as you call it, a mixture. So
yes.
like I know Caden is in a solely, of course he's been in first grade, and he is with all special needs children. But Grace and our son, who's gone to the same school, is in an inclusive program in which there are typical children and children with special needs. So we're in the weeds in that, which is helpful for people to understand, because that is so much, and you're on a different end of the spectrum, obviously, now that Ethan has graduated in 23, and I know Caden is only 7 and just finished the first grade, yay. But I want to come back to, you've hit on a couple things, but I want to ask you 2 questions. We're going to put this in 2 parts.
Okay.
But go back to, as you look at Ethan's life, what's been the biggest challenge for you and John in raising Ethan with Down syndrome?
It has to be the speech. Not being able.
Communication.
Now, as we started, and I follow guidelines of what the professionals had told me with him, on speech therapy, and I kept feeling, okay, this is going to open up. He's going to be able to really tell me, and over the years I had suggestions about doing sign language, and I just kind of felt, though, I really wanted him. I felt like he would learn to do that. I'd seen other Down syndrome children speak, and I couldn't figure out, why is he not speaking? But then I seen others as he got older, and some that would come in, join into the classroom, they weren't speaking.
Right.
And then I also found that there were, as he spent more time in a certain classroom at his elementary level, I felt like he was imitating the sounds of some of the other nonverbal kids. That concerned me, because I thought, well, he's following their lead and he's not really learning. So it was kind of a battle between what was he really receiving as he was doing speech therapy, but yet he wasn't really following anything at home, and that's been the biggest struggle.
And as I recall, when we've talked before, there was a point at which he was talking more and he's regressed. Do I remember
Okay.
that correctly?
Yes. Okay. So in the earlier elementary and high school years, he talked. He would verbalize.
Okay.
Phonate, mom, and certain needs. Okay. And I learned to read his body language.
Hmm.
He graduated in 2015, and this was another thing that took us totally off our, stand here. He went into like a major depression is what it and now the final analysis was, and he withdrew. He quit involving himself. Like he's been always a master of computers. He can do things that it's like, and he would always do physical work. They have in high school they have a life skills class where they teach them to learn to do laundry. They go out in the community. They exchange money. And it's a wonderful thing. And he did great in that. They go grocery shopping and all that.
Right.
It was at 2017 he started changing, and something triggered it. We do not know. He cannot express that.
Right.
There was a lot of physical things that happened to him, and that I reached out to so many different higher professionals out of state.
Right.
To find out what is happening with my son, because I didn't really have any resources here in my area that I could, reach out to. And so apparently there is a clinic in Ohio, and they communicated with my family physician, and our family physician is just wonderful. He kept in touch with us at home, by phone, any hour of the day, to talk about Ethan's situation, and but he had went through a major depression, and so they said they see that with a certain group of individuals, because Ethan had symptoms very similar to like Alzheimer's, but at 21 years of age, I as a mother, I was not going to accept that, and I fought for that. And so I fought against it, and so we finally got him. He did have to see a psychiatrist. They diagnosed him, and he went on some medicine that, and I know within 3 days, I started seeing life return to that child. So that was another major thing that affected him, that really tore at my heart.
Yeah.
It really affected us as a family, because we didn't know what we were dealing with at that point. But he's doing great.
Good.
He's doing great. Now he's still having problems with his speech, and I think we may return to. We had looked into doing an assisted device, a communication device, and we were working with a speech therapist in Louisville, Kentucky. She specializes in that, and but there's been some problems. I don't know if she's just so backlogged or whatever, but I think what we're going to do, we've been introduced to some few apps that we can possibly use for communication, but Ethan kind of gets frustrated with me, Mom, working him like that.
Sure.
He likes to live life real easy going, and so
he's an easygoing guy. We should have had him on our interview. And that reminds me, I would love to get some of those apps, because I've often thought and talked about that those are resources that in this community sometimes you don't know what is available. So, but let me transition.
Exactly.
I ask you the biggest challenge, which is pretty easy and kind of ongoing, but what's been the greatest joy, success, victory for you as Ethan's mom?
Oh my, that's kind of a multitude of things. Seeing him, he's always been good and kind. He's been honored several times over the year, like in the schoolwork, of being a help to others. you know, I would often do surprise visits, and I always encourage that too. If you're in a public school system, you need to always do surprise visits to kind of see how things are structured and so
Absolutely.
forth. But I would go in and I would see him help the other children in his class.
Oh, wow.
I've seen him, make poster boards, do presentations, that sort of thing. Working, we're kind of a on hands working family around our home. We cut wood, we build, certain building projects, and he gets involved in that. And just his ability to master a computer and sing with the
Really?
songs, and at one time he loves music instruments.
Huh.
He loves music instruments, and he loves to play.
Nice.
Just that, he'll come up, you may be feeling sorrowful, and he will come up and he will comfort you more than probably, anyone. But he reaches out his hand in comfort at just the right moments. I mean, there's some things you just can't put into words, just how he perceives things, and just that loving touch that he gives.
My
And I
observation
look
is that individuals with Down syndrome specifically have almost a gift of empathy that defies explanation. I know there are times Caden has just come to me in moments. It's almost, and it's never spoken, but like he just inherently knows, like Dad is down and needs a hug, and it's like, how did you know to come do that right
Absolutely.
now? And it's so
Absolutely.
heartwarming. But
it is.
we've gone a lot longer than I normally do, and so I need to pause. But we're going to do a second part of this because I've got a couple more questions for Rita Jane. But I want to thank you for being here.
Yes,
Thanks for
glad
watching
to
the
do.
Special Needs Marriage and Family channel. Remember to subscribe and hit the like button. And hopefully, as we transition to Hawaii, I'll get more in a regular rhythm and have another beautiful backdrop, obviously in Hawaii, and we'll continue on the Special Needs Marriage and Family channel. But again, thank you for being with us,
Hey, yeah.
and thanks for watching. We'll see you in part 2 and next time.